of the Planning Committee. First, we'll have a public hearing as required by the federal government on PSTA's fiscal year 2024 federal program of projects. Debbie Leas, PSTA CFO, will lead the hearing. Debbie?
Thank you so much, Chair. This public hearing has been scheduled so that the general public may be given the opportunity to comment on PSTA's program of projects. Individuals wishing to make a presentation today are required to complete a green public hearing speaker card. This card can be given to staff either at the start of the hearing or during the hearing. Speakers will be recognized in the order in which the comment cards are received. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per individual speaker unless additional time is granted. A group can designate a spokesperson by completing the appropriate form and presenting it to staff. The spokesperson can then speak on behalf of the group, addressing staff for 3 minutes for each member of the group present in the audience who waives his or her right to speak up to a maximum of 10 minutes. Presentations will be limited to only the subject for which the public hearing is being held. The public hearing will not be closed until all individuals so desiring have had an opportunity to make a presentation. Please raise your hand if you require a public hearing speaker card, and one will be provided by staff. A paid advertisement concerning this public hearing appeared in the Tampa Bay Times on Sunday, April 28th, 2024. Notices were posted at PSTA Administrative Headquarters, Park Street Terminal, Grand Central Station, Williams Park, Nels Park Transit Center, on all PSTA buses on Monday, April 29th, 2024, and on PSTA's website on Monday, 29th, 2024. An announcement was posted on social media as well on Monday, April 29th, 2024. To date, we've received 0 comments on the proposed projects. Is anyone from the public here wishing to speak? Seeing none, I am going to close the public hearing. Take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Debbie. Now, welcome to the May 15th PSTA Planning Committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'll go around the room, starting to my right. Introduce PSTA board members.
Vince Cox, Pinellas County.
Josh Schulman, St. Petersburg.
Jeff Gow, City of Dunedin.
Dave Albritton, City of Clearwater.
Patty Reed, City of Pinellas Park.
City of St. Petersburg.
All right. Is there any public comment? Any members of the public wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll go to the item 3, action items. Do I have a motion to approve the April 17th meeting minutes?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good, passed. All right, 3B, we've got the, Debbie Leas will take us through a presentation on PSTA's overall capital improvement program before we consider an action to approve the annual federal grant program. Debbie?
Thank you so much. Debbie Leas, the Chief Financial Officer here at PSTA. And as you all just saw, we held a public hearing, which is required on our federal fiscal year 24 program of projects. And we are required to have this submitted by the end of May. And the action item that'll be before you today is just to approve, allow staff to do an application to FTA for this program of projects. We do like to keep it flexible so that if we need to, we can shift between different what we call activity line items. So one of the things I wanted to point out is this program of projects is just a sliver of what we have in our 5-year capital plan. We come up with ideas, we come up with projects, we work to get those projects funded that go out usually over multiple years. And they all fall within 3 categories, and that would be through our transit asset management plan and keeping our items in a state of good repair, having normal replacements. One of the things that comes to mind are our buses. That's a normal replacement. And we also have new initiatives. One of the things I wanted to point out is when you take a look at our capital improvement plans, they're basically about 99% federally funded. In order to get in the capital improvement program, we take a look through a comprehensive prioritization process here at PSTA, where all the capital projects are ranked. You may recall the first the first workshop that we had here, we had recommendations from this group as to how to improve the ranking process, and we incorporated it into a form that each project manager has to complete. So as we take a look at that, your rankings are in the package, and what I wanted to do is introduce some project managers to talk about a couple of our top-ranked projects, a project for which is a new initiative that we will be seeking a congressional earmark for, and also a new initiative that you'll be hearing from Abhishek Dayal. With that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Debbie, and good morning, everyone. I'm Abhishek Dayal, Director of Project Management. I'm going to kick things off with our number one priority on our capital projects list, and that's the Clearwater Transit Center project. You've heard several updates on this project, and you've also approved certain items regarding this project. It is a replacement. We categorize that under our replacement category because it is a highly needed replacement for our Park Street terminal in downtown Clearwater. And we do think with all the initiatives that we're including as part of the design, this will be a massive improvement for our riders for this project. And certainly will reduce our maintenance costs, particularly as it relates to repair and replacement of items at our Park Street terminal. You have already taken several actions regarding this project, and in the next several months, I will be coming back for further requests for action, particularly as it relates to the design contract. And then next year in summer, we'll be awarding a contract to finally begin construction on this project. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda to talk about our next important project.
Good morning. I'm Director of Communications, Amanda Baird. For those of you who are at the Finance Committee this morning, this will look a little bit familiar. Our second-ranked project, silver medal on this sheet, but gold medal in my heart, is our PSTA website, Redesign and Rebuild. We are currently in the solicitation process to redesign and rebuild PSTA.net. Including several technology improvements, including offsite hosting, and communications and branding improvements, including search engine optimization, ADA compliance, and improved search and information architecture within the site, so we can always make sure that all of our users of our website, be they riders, on their phones, out at a bus stop, board members on iPads in meetings, or anyone in the community can always get the right information at the right time. So with that, I will turn it over to Henry.
All right, good morning, Henry Lukasik, Director of Maintenance. So as many of you know, we are under contract with Gillig to purchase 60 new all-electric buses. Currently, 6 of those have been delivered and deployed in service right now. You can catch them on the 19 and the 59, but we do rotate them around. They're performing well, better than our original expectations. And another 2 were delivered this week, and all of the buses should be delivered by the end of FY25. Obviously, being newer buses, there's a reduced operating cost, and what these are going to be replacing, if you can imagine this, are original 2005 and 2006 model buses. They're about 20 years old, and they have almost 1.2 million miles on them. Wow. So we need to retire those out, and these buses will be doing that. Abhishek.
Thanks, Henry, and I'm back, and I'm Abhishek Dayal, Director of Project Management. Here's our first new initiative project that's on the list, and that is the new Sunrunner Station close to the St. Pete Pier. This was funded with our savings from the Sunrunner project. We are currently in design. We anticipate completing the design in the next month or so. We are expecting to come back to you for an approval of a construction management task order to start the construction, and then also a contract award to start construction in the next couple of months. So watch out for the next series of actions on this very important and exciting project. I'm going to turn it over to BJ to talk about solar.
It's here and it's real, almost. So for the long tenured board members, we heard you and we have updates for you. And for our newer board members, I'm going to share with you where we are and how solar fits into PSDA's future plans. So this is a new initiative in step with a sustainable strategic plan, which the board adopted in January 2021. And that plan laid out the importance of resilience when evaluating PSDA's projects. As PSDA continues to grow, as Henry talked about with our electric fleet, we must prepare to accommodate the anticipated energy needs. We have to charge and maintain these buses. And this project is about capturing that renewable energy, using it for our buses, our facility, and offsetting our utility costs. In 2022, Duke Energy conducted an assessment to determine the suitability of installing necessary infrastructure for that short-term and long-term energy need. And at that time, a roof installation of solar was identified as phase 1 of this project. Now, with our roof naturally reaching the end of its design life, there's an opportunity we can couple these two projects. Together, we can get cost efficiency and schedule efficiency by doing something we already needed to do and taking on this resiliency project. So the solar energy project is a way for PSDA to diversify its energy sources, offset costs during normal operations, but also be self-sustaining during times of power outages. So the upcoming actions that you'll see in the next 60 to 90 days, we'll be bringing before the board a project management construction management task order for Skanska, design build oversight. And then a month after that, we'll be back before the board with a selected solar design build contractor. So that design build contractor will both design and construct the solar project. I've also got the next item, shelters. New shelters are a constant in our capital program. And when you see a new shelter pop up in the wild, how did it get there? And I don't mean our facilities department because that's actually how it got there, but what I mean is how did that decision come to be? I'm going to answer that question, but I'm also going to tell you how you can get more shelters, more infrastructure, more improvements in the communities that you represent. But first, the how. 3 ways. First is a shelter replacement, AKA a switch out, new for old. The second, locations in need. A site was identified as needed in our PSDA priority list. And the third, coordinated projects, which come from outside of PSDA. So the first, shelter replacement, most straightforward, existing shelters at the end of its design life, just a switch out. Second, locations in need. We have an ongoing list contributed to by 4 different departments here at PSTA that dictates what is the next up, what are the next projects coming up. And of the 100 locations in that list, we've got City of St. Pete, Clearwater, Largo, Pinellas Park, Dunedin. That's familiar. Those are our population centers. But I also want to recognize ongoing evaluations at priority sites in Gulfport, Seminole, Tarpon Springs, Madeira Beach, Treasure Island, and Indian Rocks Beach. Now, what if you didn't hear a community you represent on that list? FDOT or Pinellas County may have you covered. We work with them on coordinated projects, so if you have one of their roadways coming through your community, you could likely see new shelter infrastructure. We reviewed about 40 of those projects last year. But what I'm going to share with you now is the secret to getting more shelters and more infrastructure in your community. It's that third type, shelter placement coordinated projects. So I mentioned FDOT and Pinellas County, but your city or your town can also request that PSTA reviews their projects. We'll review the entirety of the project and identify existing and proposed shelter needs. The secret is having your city or town's planning department or engineering department or development reach out to us. We'll review their plans. Now, I do want to call out some superstars in this regard, communities that are getting more reviews than any of the others. And that would be City of St. Pete, Pinellas, Largo, and Dunedin. But the only reason why is simply because they asked. So if your communities reach out to us, we are happy to review their projects. Shelter replacements and locations in need are the easiest for us. We have those covered, we know the data, we know where those locations are. It's the known unknowns with projects in your communities. If we don't hear about them, then we can't review them. So that is my ask to you to help us get more infrastructure into your communities. So with that, I will pass it on to Kessia, who's next, Director of IT.
Good morning. My name is Kessie Harris, Director of Information Technology. So I'm here to talk about online verification for Flamingo or Open Payments. If you recall last year when we launched Open Payments, we talked about making the provision for seniors to qualify for the discounts when they use Open Payments. Well, in the next couple of weeks, seniors will have that ability to tap on the validator and they will qualify for the discounts. We also talked about the second phase that we wanted to do, which was to add an additional option for seniors to register to get that discount. This project will enable seniors to register through an online process. We're also looking to add veterans to that group. So we want to pilot that, and that way when they go online and register, the entire process will be done online. They wouldn't have to necessarily have to go to a transit center to do that process. We have applied for a federal earmark, and we are hoping if we do qualify to have that project begin in FY25.
So coming back to our action item for today, our action item is to allow staff to make application to the Federal Transit Administration for the federal fiscal year 24 program of projects. And this helps to secure the funding for the projects you just heard about and projects going forward. And you will be getting in your packet for the June meeting where we will be going over the operating and capital budget for fiscal 25. The information on all the CIP going out to 29. Almost all of it, except for the items that you heard about today on the new initiatives, are normal replacements or state of good repair. With that, I will take any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Deb?
Quick question, and I need to go back to the Flamingo virtual discount that we were offering. I know currently right now, we're also allowing seniors to register by phone, correct?
I don't think so. You have to go to a customer service center to show proof of.
And the only reason why I asked is because the mobility of some of our seniors and the lack of, and the technology that they do not possess or will refuse to actually address. Because I had my mom quit a job because she didn't want to learn how to use a computer, which was so funny, but she eventually caught on. So we do have those seniors that won't have that access. And so I didn't know if that was going to be an option for our seniors. And we want to make that as easy of a process for them as possible. They might not have that access nor somebody to assist them with it. Have we considered that?
I know that, and I don't know if Amanda's still here. Oh, there you are. But, I know the outreach folks have also gone out to senior citizen locations, homes,
Yeah.
et cetera,
Yeah.
to help assist with that.
Yeah, so our outreach team does go out in person. The verification process right now does require someone to physically see an ID that serves as proof of age, or in the case of the disability discount, they have to submit the application verifying their disability. So it's not really an easy or intuitive thing that we could just have a customer service rep do over the phone, because you do have to provide that proof. I believe that the application for disability can be submitted via mail. And we do have our outreach team go out in person to some of those senior centers when they can.
So those that are not connected to senior centers, how do they get the information or request someone from the outreach team to?
They currently they can always call us and talk to us, and we can connect them. Right now, the verification process, for the most part, most of the verifications do require them to go to any of our manned customer service windows.
So we
think-
can
I
look
think
into that,
also-
to go
Yeah.
to a senior citizen center and have someone there to look at everybody's ID and sign them all up. We could do that.
But I also think that like the area on aging, and Ross is working on a program or a form that they can fill out, but because they're trying, I know with the LCB board, that's what we were talking about, and that they can go through multiple Medicare, Medicaid, the area on aging. I know that they'll set up centers, area on aging, and go to and come out and do that and get them signed up for, and from what Ross told me, they can enter their information and it goes, oh, well, you not only qualify for this, but you qualify for this and you qualify for this if and I just talked to Ross about it. So make it a lot easier for people who don't know where to go and what to do. I know that they're looking at that because we have a meeting next week, and that was one of the things that had come up, that they were making it easier for seniors that don't use smartphones. My dad uses a flip phone, and they have no transportation, hence why we're trying to get them on the program. So I know that they're setting up pop-ups to do that
That's
they
my
talk
point, communication.
Yep.
We know it, but someone that doesn't have access, trying something new, needing to trying to find a way to become mobile, they don't. So what are we doing to, I guess I may have crossed the lines into marketing now, but yeah, that was pretty much my point. How do they know that we have this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful?
And I do know that the long-term trend on our fare revenue is a lot more. I don't know if these are seniors or people with disabilities or students, but I think they're mostly seniors. Our number of people that are paying the reduced half-price fare has gone way up as a proportion of our overall ridership. So, to Commissioner Reed's point, we are trying to create more partnerships where, like with nonprofits and stuff, if they know if a client of a nonprofit is obviously transportation disadvantaged or a senior because it's the area agency on aging or the Sunshine Center or something like that, then we have created programs where they automatically qualify because we take the partner and agency's word for their verification. And I think that has led to a lot more seniors and folks being able to get the half price. What Kessie was describing was the new greatest thing that people really seem to love is the paying by credit or debit card, and not having to just take what is in their wallet already and riding the bus. And this will someday allow seniors and veterans and others to take advantage of that too.
Thank you for that. I love the conversation and the communication. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question about the solar. So with what we're doing there, is that something that we're going to own? Or are we, and so the energy that is produced from that comes directly to us, it doesn't pass through a third party?
Yeah, so this is going to be owned by PSTA, yes.
Okay, and are there other solar initiatives going on as well, outside of this particular one?
So what I mentioned and what I focused on is phase one of that project. That would be solar panels on the roof. There's a phase two and a phase three of that project wholly on this campus. So that would be the bus transit yard, covering that, and then covering the third phase would be covering the parking lot. These are all cost dependent, so we need to get contractors and oversight on board to start developing those costs and see how much money we have, see how far we can take it. But we're writing those elements into the project itself to get as far as we can with the money we have.
Okay, does phase one, and you may have mentioned it, but does phase one include storage or generation?
That's written in phase one as a storage solution to explore either battery a battery on site or to see how we can use our electric buses as batteries. So if they are here directly connecting the solar into our electric buses to be able to charge those up, we're asking both of those things of the project to be able to have those solutions. But there's also the element of being able to push the energy back onto the grid for discounts or for offsets, I should say.
Okay, thank you.
Got any other questions from the board? Any public questions? All right, do I have a motion to recommend the approval of federal grants?
So moved.
Second,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed the first. Who made the motion?
Joshua.
Thank you.
and Vincent made the second.
I got the second, yeah.
Everyone knows it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, let's go move to the next item. Whit Blanton, Director of Ford Pinellas is here. Oh, there he is.
Hey there.
To give us a presentation of the LRTP, the Long Range Transportation Plan. Whit?
All right, well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I apologize to staff. You've heard this presentation yesterday. Bear with me. What we wanted to do is take a little time this month to update you about our long-range planning efforts and really how Ford Pinellas works in partnership with PSTA to advance your goals and objectives and how we work together, because our focus is a little different. We're not just the MPO, we are also the land use planning agency that is responsible countywide for enabling the kind of environments that make transit successful, walkable, thriving, mixed-use neighborhoods. And those are hard to come by, but it takes effort, perseverance, and working with our local government partners to make it happen. So I'm going to say some things here you've probably heard before, but I just want to highlight a few things that we pay a lot of attention to. As many of you know, this is kind of like the things you have to say. We're a peninsula on a peninsula, and we're the most densely populated county in the state. But the evidence is that we're getting even more dense and more developed, and we're more vulnerable than ever. We are expecting over the next 25 years to add about 120,000 people as permanent residents of this county and about an additional 80,000 jobs to this county. And both of those we take very seriously because we develop those forecasts not in a vacuum, but in close consultation with every one of our local government partners. And we actually came up with a lower population estimate, and then we sat down with local government staff, and they showed us all these different development plans and what they've enabled, and we revised that number upward to 120. We do have a lot of local governments here, but I think generally my experience in the 9 years that I've been here is that Pinellas County rose in the similar direction. It's very different than a lot of places I've worked where you have a lot of division within internal to the county. So I think we all have some shared experiences and shared outlooks on how we grow. I want to highlight some of the key trends that we're seeing in this 2050 long-range transportation plan. One is a need for strengthened transit service regionally. And you're all familiar with the Brightline service that now connects Orlando with West Palm, Miami-Dade, Broward County, and plans to bring Brightline to Tampa. They can't move fast enough, but at the same time, there's some real hurdles, and Brightline is expecting it to cost about $8 billion to bring that train to Tampa, and it's about $200 million for every station that they build. So there's some real money involved there that the state is not too inclined to participate in, other than enabling the right-of-way and enabling the access along the I-4 corridor. So that's certainly happened. When you have strengthened regional transit that connects people with jobs across this growing region, that's going to drive more investment, I think, and more desire to see those local connections, however they're made, be stronger. So there's sort of a cascading effect happening with that. Maintaining our statewide lead in higher wage employment is something we take very seriously. It's a little known fact, although I say every opportunity I can, is that Pinellas generally ranks either number 2 or number 3 in the state in manufacturing jobs. I cringe when I hear that we're a tourist-driven economy. We are, and tourism counts for a lot of the revenue that comes into our state and in our region, but the jobs generally aren't high-paying jobs compared to those in office employment and technology, and we have a lot of those jobs. So we just completed our target employment industrial land study where we believe we've given a lot more incentive and a lot more opportunity to keep those jobs in Pinellas County and not see higher wage jobs leave for Channelside and other places that are more consistent with where the market wants those jobs to be. Tourism is always going to be a backbone of our transportation network and of our economy. And there are certain board members on my board who say that every meeting. And we know that that's a critical market that we can tap into. But teaching a tourist to ride the bus every new time they come here is a lot harder than teaching a resident to ride the bus and getting comfortable and embracing that lifestyle. It's sort of like experience over the first-time visitor. And so we've got a long way to go to be a place where the first thing a tourist thinks about is where's the train I'm going to get to go to the beach. Housing supply and cost is another big issue that we hear all the time. We are part of a housing action plan, a housing compact that many local governments have signed, and we are working to reduce the barriers to providing more housing in the right locations here in Pinellas County. The Live Local Act and other preemptions by the legislature have undermined some of our efforts to preserve high-wage jobs. At the same time, they are putting an enormous amount of money into housing programs and have done some good in terms of requiring reduced parking requirements around transit stations and in our underperforming commercial areas, enabling that to be redeveloped as residential. I think is an opportunity that we can take advantage of. Technology is a big issue. There's faster and faster adoption of everything from electric vehicles to new forms of technology for connected vehicles. And while we may not see fully autonomous vehicles in the very near future, connected vehicles are an absolute thing that we're seeing already, and that will happen more and more. And then you're probably aware of our efforts to look at regional planning for the Metropolitan Planning Organization to merge potentially with Hillsborough and Pasco County. Those talks are ongoing. In fact, we have a meeting here tomorrow, day after tomorrow, of the Transportation Management Area Leadership Group to continue having that conversation about what a regional MPO looks like and how it functions, kind of at a two-tiered level, because we want to deal with the regional needs, but we also want to make sure we don't forget about the local needs in each county. And so that telescoping is important. So Ford Pinellas, I'm going to go quickly through this because you probably all know, we are two legal agencies, the PPC, Pinellas Planning Council, enabled in state statute, and the MPO, enabled in federal law, but also has some state statutes that govern our requirements here. The PPC is an advisory body. We work with local governments, we provide technical assistance, but our recommendations are to the Board of County Commissioners sitting as the countywide planning authority, and we're their staff when they take those items. So it's kind of an interesting situation. But they vote on those land use changes. On the MPO side, we are the backstop. We are the decision maker, and the Florida Department of Transportation is required by federal law to follow our priorities. So if we establish a priority, DOT has to follow that. And we're a large MPO. If we were a smaller MPO, they wouldn't have to as much. These are our board members. I see some of them here in the audience. We do have a plan waiting on the governor's approval to expand our 13-member board to 19. We expect that could take place sometime this summer, maybe in the fall. Staff is already thinking about how we will restructure our meetings and restructure our engagement with board members and agendas to ensure that everybody feels represented, we're not rushing through items, and we're having productive conversations. The partnership, I believe, is very strong here with PSTA, and my experience in this county as a transportation planner goes back to the late 80s, and that relationship between the MPO and PSTA has not always been as good as it is today. We are considered a statewide model and best practice for how we coordinate, and I'm proud of that. And Brad's been a big part of that. Cassandra Borchers was a big part of that when she was here. Heather continues to support that as well. And I think what I like about it most is that we can have candid conversations with the Florida Department of Transportation on those meetings, on those calls. And there's a lot that we say that we don't necessarily want to leave those meetings, but at the same time, it gives us the ability to understand each other and where we're coming from, and it's very helpful. Where we're really focusing is on these three areas. We are developing a transit system plan that is complementary to the community bus plan that PSTA is putting together. And they're not competing, they're complementary, because our focus is longer range. We're looking 20 to 25 years out. We are looking primarily at land use and redevelopment and how transit can enhance and support that redevelopment. PSTA is focused a little more on operations and on more of a 5 to 10 year horizon for service improvements, service efficiency, and those two absolutely go hand in hand. I kind of look at it as we're the keepers of the vision, and PSTA is helping us achieve that vision through operating and implementation actions. The investment corridor transition plan, specifically for alternate US 19, is front and center of that effort, but we have identified 9 different investment corridors. We're reevaluating those investment corridors, and we might add 1 or 2 as part of this long-range plan adoption. But these are the places where we see the best ability to link housing that's affordable with jobs, higher wage jobs, and job training. It's also the corridors where we see that affordable housing component and redevelopment happening, because retail and other dynamics, market economics, have changed the character of 66th Street and Seminole, Missouri Boulevard and East Bay Roosevelt to where you don't have the same demand for brick and mortar retail and parking associated with that. And we aren't very dense when you look at these commercial corridors. They're generally single-use buildings, single-story buildings, sometimes 2-story, and they're aging. They're aging. The land is a lot more valuable than the buildings in many cases. So for the Alt 19 plan, we created a land use and high-level transportation strategy for that corridor, connecting the Sunrunner on the south to downtown Clearwater on the north, linking a lot of high-wage jobs in that corridor as well. And PSTA is now undertaking the Transit Corridor Alternatives Report to look at operationally, what are some of the capital and operating changes that need to happen to make transit more efficient in that corridor. And these 2 efforts are key to tapping into state and federal funds for both operating and for capital. And the state has gotten a lot more flexible in the last few years as a result directly of our requests to free up money that District 7, our DOT, maintains and manages to go towards operations for transit. And we're very appreciative of that, because that's the Achilles heel that we have. From a land use standpoint, again, we are driving the ship to create walkable mixed-use development patterns, which are essential for transit to thrive. If people can't walk, transit's pretty much a non-option for them. So there is some walking involved with every transit trip. So this is where having that transit-oriented development pattern really helps. We are prioritizing capital replacement and electric vehicle charging. We allocate $1.5 million every year in our priority list and through our transportation work program directly to PSTA. We're thinking of increasing that amount because we have a record number of flexible surface transportation block grant funds coming to our agency as a result of the infrastructure law that was signed by Congress a couple of years ago. We are a stakeholder in the community bus plan, and we've provided comments and feedback on that, and we're making sure it aligns with our county-wide plan as well. And then waterborne transportation is, depending on who you talk to, super important or not important at all. So it's one of those things that's emerging, but we want to make the success of it as much as we can. We have a $655,000 grant that FDOT awarded to PSTA, and we're rustling up the match that is required for that, with the hope of resuming Clearwater Ferry regular service beginning in October. In addition to that, we are just about to get started on a waterborne transit market research study that will look at the market demand, the market segmentation for waterborne transit regionally, Manatee, Hillsborough, and Pinellas, with a focus on the Cross Bay Ferry and its expansion, and also the Clearwater Ferry and its expansion. For land use and transit, I mentioned Advantage Alt 19. That is our next major corridor where we're looking at transit. The station area planning, we are beginning the implementation of that effort with the City of Largo. They have a number of areas, and Largo is very supportive of this plan, tied into their redevelopment efforts for downtown Largo, which is beginning to emerge. And we think we have an opportunity to pursue some federal funds as well as some state funds to make this a reality. The Gateway Master Plan we adopted a few years ago with 4 local government partners, each contributing $100,000, and the state contributing over $500,000 to complete this plan. Nusheen Rahman of our staff is here in the audience, and she is now shepherding the Gateway Master Plan through implementation. We are kicking off a discussion with the business community about how they can be a partner in making transit, first mile, last mile, and all forms of transit work in the Gateway area. We are also conducting additional traffic studies centered around the Gateway Expressway and how that's changing traffic patterns in this area. And as you know, the county, you may know, the county center is moving here to one of our catalyst sites identified in this plan, ICOT Center. And that's an enormous opportunity to create a mixed-use environment on those 20 acres that the county purchased a few months ago. The Sunrunner Rising Transit-Oriented Development Plan is a complement to the Sunrunner service, and we have been working with PSTA and the City of St. Petersburg to advance a detailed plan that's coming to the St. Pete City Council here in the next month or two on the 22nd Street Station Area Plan. They've also begun developing plans for other stations along the corridor, and I'm really excited that now South Pasadena, which never wanted the Sunrunner, is now coming to us and saying, well, we want redevelopment, let's begin efforts to start looking at transit-oriented development around Sunrunner stations in South Pasadena. So I think there's movement there that is real positive, and I look at the Sunrunner as not a what's your ridership doing this month versus last month. It's a 5-year, 10-year plan to build that ridership over time. So our long-range plan, just to highlight a few things, we can't move any transportation project into implementation, design, right-of-way acquisition, or construction if it's not first in this long-range plan. We can amend the plan, but it's much easier if we put it all in the plan together and show it as a system that's all connected. This is what really takes into account the demographic and socioeconomic changes that are happening. We adopted our last long-range plan in 2019, and there was kind of a big thing that happened in 2020, so travel patterns have changed, commute patterns have changed, and we're trying to make sure we understand what that means for the future. The schedule is basically, here's what you need to know. We're adopting it this fall. So in October, we have to adopt this plan. We are now looking at how to balance project costs and revenues. And as I mentioned, just a little quick snapshot, between 2025 and 2030, Ford Pinellas is expecting to receive $115 million in flexible surface transportation block grant funds from the federal government. Now, it's not cash I have in hand, it's not sitting in a bank, but it's money that is available to us that is rightly ours if we have the right projects in the mix to take advantage of that. And these are funds that we control. We set the priorities for how those funds are spent. $115 million over 5 years goes a long way. We currently use that money for the PSTA capital allocation, the $1.5 million I talked about, local government grants directly for complete streets projects and safety projects and things like that. The state has really scaled back its resurfacing program because of the cost of asphalt. So if we have a resurfacing job coming in, like 34th Street South in St. Petersburg or others, then we can use this flexible money to augment that resurfacing to incorporate safety features, wide sidewalks, mid-block crossings, you name it, in the corridor. So, and we have other uses of that as well, technology and so forth. We did a lot of outreach as part of this long-range plan, and we kind of go where people are. We don't like to hold meetings. You come to us and tell us what you think. We try to go where people already are. One of the things we did was a statistically valid survey of residents. And this was eye-opening. It's the same results we got in 2019, so there's some consistency here, but I don't think people appreciate this or know enough about it. Overall, people want options about how they get around. That's overwhelming. When we ask people, more than 70% of our respondents want lower speeds for safer streets. And that's up from 57% in 2018. Strong support for roadways to have space for all users. Having a variety of land uses within a 10-minute walk of your neighborhood destinations is more than 70% support that. I don't even know who the 30% are, but I can't imagine that people wouldn't want some sort of walkable place near their home. Only 20% would never take transit. And you've met those people, right? You've had conversations with them.
Not me.
But nearly 50% would if it got them around safely, quickly, and efficiently. And then finally, the big number here is 64% of respondents stated a desire to see improved transportation options for regional connections. Not everybody wants to be tethered to an automobile for every trip they make, all day long, all year long, for their entire family. So next steps and priorities. We develop an annual list of transportation priorities. We usually take that list that we had last year and we identify projects that were completed. We take them off the list. We identify projects that now have funding and we move them up into the funded category. And then we rank in priority order the unfunded priorities. And there are some projects we put right on the top and we ask DOT to just fund those first. And then other projects kind of work their way. We have about 30 or so list, 35 list number of projects that are unfunded right now. And we try to keep that manageable. 25 to 35 is about right. And usually what DOT is, they go down that list until the money runs out in the adopted budget for their work program that year. And it's a 5-year work program, but each year we add a new project to that 5-year work program. So that's really kind of what I wanted to highlight for you, is that we have this strong partnership. Transit doesn't exist in a vacuum. It depends on good partners, just like our work depends on good partners, and good committed partners who stay committed for 5 to 7 years, because that's how long it takes to deliver many of our transportation projects. And that's been the biggest challenge, is working with elected officials, working with the changeover in boards of neighborhood groups and business groups, working with the changeover in elected officials on boards, and keeping projects alive. And it really takes not only us and PSTA staff out there, it takes the local government staff really talking to their constituents about it as well. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have, but I really just wanted to thank you for your time this morning and the ability to just remind you of the strong partnership we have together.
Thank you, Whit. Any questions from the board? Any public?
Chair?
Oh, yep.
Thank you, Whit, for the presentation. When you talk about transit-oriented development or roads, how do other forms, right, if the residents are saying they want safer streets, slower, alternative forms of transportation, slower traffic, where do, other than public transit, those other forms, walking and biking, where do they fit into the plan? Do you look at Pinellas County and go, this is a great place for a bike route? Or do you work on the roadside and go, well, while we're working on the road, let's put in a bike lane? And which comes first?
That's a good question. Chicken or egg? They both have a role there. I would say that first we have an active transportation plan that does system-wide, look at the whole county. And it's a kind of high level. You know, we have the 75-mile loop to be completed of the Pinellas Trail. And now we're focusing on beyond the loop, or how you connect to the loop. And that's kind of a high level look. So I'm not at a fine grain level like the city of Dunedin, looking at where are the sidewalk gaps everywhere and exactly what I need to do within the city of Dunedin. I kind of depend on cities for that. But I do look at, from a high level, there's a desire to connect. I'll just use your city as an example. There's no really good way to go from Dunedin to Safety Harbor on a bike that's comfortable for most people, unless you go way out of direction. So we're looking at the Sunset Point corridor generally for that connection. And that's one of the projects that's high on the list of our active transportation list. Bel Air Road in Clearwater is another one where that ties into the Duke Energy Trail on the east. Eagle Lake Park has a great trail system within that park. And then Largo is building a trail network to the western end of the Pinellas Trail along Rosary Road. So I'm now working with the county to get Bel Air Road to have a multi-use path on Bel Air Road. And then you have an east-west connection between Duke Energy Trail and Pinellas Trail in the west. At the other hand, when DOT is looking to resurface a road and we see an opportunity, we look at it and say, is there a gap in the bicycle network here? And is there something that we can do to make it safer to ride a bike in this corridor? And recently we had a conversation with DOT about East Bay Drive. And the city of Largo would like to see some protected bike lanes on East Bay Drive. DOT has a resurfacing project coming. they've given us a cost of either, depending on how they do it, it's like 1.9 million or 3.6 million. And they're asking, will the city of Largo cover that cost? And then we'll build you a protected bikeway in that road. So it comes down to kind of questions like that. And, you know, we have a project that may go south here on Thursday, and if it doesn't happen, I've got money to free up. I might put some of that money on Largo's East Bay Drive to build that bike path. So we look for opportunities. And like I said, if I've got a local government partner wanting to do something, state's got a resurfacing, and we see an opportunity or a gap, we'll work with them.
What's the word on the street, or what is any surveys, what is industry saying about the oncoming of e-bikes as forms of transportation as opposed to forms of recreational transportation?
It depends on the user. E-bikes are being increasingly substituted for automobile trips, especially on the lower income scale of workers. Anecdotally, you see them all the time, riding out to the beach and places like that for jobs. I have an e-bike, I use it for commuting, but I think also a lot of older people who have knee and hip injuries are gravitating to e-bikes because now they can get back on a bike. They are outselling EVs by 4 times, electric vehicle cars. So, and it continues to increase. Prices are coming down. I think we're going to continue to see a lot of e-bikes. My solution to the Pinellas Trail issue and conflicts is let's make our roads safer. And e-bike users who are commuters looking to go 30 miles an hour are going to use the safer streets rather than the Pinellas Trail, hopefully.
And your data is saying that there's 15 million visitors coming to Pinellas County every year. And from my understanding, 90% of them are coming by car. What is Fort Pinellas's focus on? And most of those are even coming through our airports, either PI or TIA. Is there a thought or a vision on what we can do to capture those airfares instead of them renting cars? How can we get them out to our beaches without using a car?
Yeah, vision is great. You got to have vision, but you got to back it up with dollars. So I would say there's a couple things. One, we absolutely need to have transit service to Pinellas, St. Pete Clearwater Airport. One option we've started thinking about is we've been talking about an intermodal center for regional transportation in the Gateway area. There's a big piece of land that the county has been trying to develop for buildings next to the airport and hasn't had any success. Maybe that's a good location for the intermodal center right next to the airport. Transit doesn't serve that airport today. The Tampa International Airport is actually talking with FDOT about taking over the property owned by DOT for the intermodal center in West Shore. And if the airport owns it and not DOT, the airport's got a lot more money that can be used to start investing in transit because of the airline fees that they pay to use Tampa International Airport. So there's now a lot of talk about that may become like a rail hub. The Howard Franklin is being outfitted to handle light rail transit. CSX is going to take a lot of money to upgrade those rail tracks for passenger transit, and then you're probably going to have to double track to satisfy CSX. So you're talking $500 million or more. Again, it all comes down to money, and we need to be able to show that there's a local commitment. CSX has talked to us directly and said, we will work with you, but we need to see a plan backed by financial commitment. And we're a long way from a plan backed by financial commitment right now.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this is appropriate for the long-range transportation plan, but are any of these funds or any part of our plan geared directly towards safety and safety enhancements? And I'm thinking partly ways to enhance safety for school students who are using our roads, accessing bus stops, which then also applies to PSTA, as we have riders who are walking and using other modes of transportation to get to our stops, and then obviously want to keep them safe in those areas. So, are any of these funds or buckets able to be used towards that endeavor?
They are. They are. We can absolutely put dollars towards lighting plans. We can put dollars towards safe crossings at bus stops. You've been part of those conversations through the School Transportation Committee. I think it's been frustrating for everybody that we haven't gotten enough traction on that. Our challenge is it's been really difficult for us to just box funds and wait for projects to come because they're vulnerable to being swept every year by the state if there's not like a hard project. And I haven't been in every one of those meetings, but I think a lot of it comes down to the local governments being willing to be partners with us. And a lot of the local governments that we meet with and talk with, and Tarpon Springs is a real good example, they speak loud, but they don't back it up with funding commitments. And it takes two to tango. So
Right.
we've got some hurdles to work through with that. The state seems a little more receptive to box funds for safety than they were, say, 2 or 3 years ago. So if we can do that, then we can set aside money for safety and just sort of hold it until we can get enough projects together to start pushing it out.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I realize that it is a partnership with local governments, and that is, with 25 of them or 24 municipalities, that is hard to deal with. What's harder to deal with is when a student dies because they're walking to a bus stop, and then there's this massive push to protect that bus stop.
Yep.
As opposed to, what are we doing as far as protecting this entire system? And as a citizen of Pinellas County, I don't understand the disconnect there as to how we care. And it's usually you're paying for these things after the fact without disregarding the life that was lost is actually more expensive than if we were to put these things into place in advance. So I just wasn't sure if it was if that sort of project was part of our priority list somewhere in there and saying, like, this is something we'd like to use funds for.
It is.
Because I also know, again, from the PSTA standpoint, we'd like to make sure that it's also walkable and easy to get to, and the bus stops that we have are safe, and like the connectivity from, crossing the street and going from one place to another is all there.
Right.
So, okay.
So in the long-range plan, I mentioned the looking at the projected revenues. So we are identifying how much money we're going to put towards safety projects, standalone safety projects. We know that a lot of safety projects aren't standalone, though. They go with another project. So, yeah.
One other item, and it's possibly controversial, and it has probably nothing to do with Forward Pinellas, but I've been looking at, we've done transit-oriented development studies, and we're looking at the transit corridor around the Sunrunner, and the values of those properties along that corridor are growing tremendously, or going up tremendously, due to the investment that the community has made. And more so than if you go five streets to the north or south, if you leave that corridor, and yes, they're increasing, but they're not at the same rate. Yet, we have no way as a community to recapture any of that. All of that added wealth that was a community investment are going to individuals, and we have more individuals buying more of those properties, driving those costs up, which then make it harder for everything else to develop. And we don't recapture any of that. So we all put money in to make that investment, and then there are smaller and smaller groups that are reaping that reward. And that, I know, like in St. Petersburg, we have tax increment financing, and there's districts and things like so. The extra money has to come back into this district, but I don't see that sort of. And I struggle with the free market side of things because that's just the way that's sometimes how the cards are dealt. But when we're doing these things and we're identifying corridors, we're doing these things with purpose. There are individuals who are looking at those plans also, and then buying into those plans to then reap the rewards, which then takes away from what the community can use driving up costs in other ways.
You make a really good point. Years ago, I did a study of the Pinellas Trail, and we found that the homes within a quarter mile of the Pinellas Trail appreciated in value 2 to 3% higher than average home sales anywhere else in the county.
Mhm.
Same probably for Sunrunner and similar investments. We are about to kick off a project to substantially revise the countywide multimodal transportation impact fee, which is a form of value capture.
Okay.
And we're looking at either a mobility fee or a traditional transportation impact fee. We have artificially held those costs down at an 80% political factor or adjustment during the recession.
Mm-hmm.
In 2013 or 2014 that was made, and it has never been readjusted back. So we charge a developer far less than our neighbors to the south, to the north. Hillsborough doesn't charge anybody anything, so they're kind of doing the same update, so is City of Tampa. but I looked at what we charge 1,000 square feet of commercial property here compared to Orange County in Orlando. It's 1 to 20. 20 times more they charge developers for a commercial piece of property for an impact fee. Now, I'm not saying we need to go up 20 times, but maybe we go up 10%, 20%. Something that begins to capture that value and bring it back. And those dollars are local dollars that are eminently flexible, that can be used for capital, that can be used as a local match.
Exactly.
All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't realize that existed to that extent. Certainly, I didn't know that there was a discrepancy from other communities. But it seems to me, as we've been watching some of these developments, which we wanted to have happen. So I don't want to, stifle that sort of development, but I want to make sure that the community at large is capturing value from that.
It's a balance.
That as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even just like the Central Avenue corridor, some of those properties have doubled from a year ago.
Yeah.
And it's because of the Sunrunner, and it's because more and more properties are getting eaten up. And when I go and look at Sunbiz and look at the owners of those properties, and there's 30 different LLCs that are all backed by the same 3 or 4 people that are gobbling these things up. You're like, wow, there's a lot of wealth being handed to just a certain handful of people based on a community investment. So, okay. I'll climb off the soapbox, thanks.
You got to balance that with housing affordability too, right?
Well, I mean, obviously, it all goes hand in hand, and I'm a free market person, and I understand how all that works, but I also understand that we are all in this together, and so not everyone's rowing the boat at the same strength as others, so we all need to row equally as hard. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else have questions for Whit?
I don't have a question, but thank you for that question, thank you for that response, and since it was mentioned, I just don't want us to forget that although those property values do appreciate, property taxes go into that as well.
That's right.
So, when I think about, the appreciation of the property that certain homeowners have gotten comfortable with, they get that new tax bill.
Oh, that's right.
So let us not forget that. So
Exactly.
so I just kind of want to put that out there. That
We're fixing to navigate a very difficult process with this impact fee update.
Yes, so let us not think that it is truly a benefit all of the time and for everybody, so,
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Whit, and I'll see you tomorrow night.
Thank you.
You got it. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Looking forward to that.
There may be 12 million available.
All right, let's see, final information item related to the fiscal year 25 budget will be presented by Brad.
Good morning. So I feel a little bit, that was a very high-level discussion by Whit and a lot bigger concepts. But as he said, PSDA focuses more on the short term, and as you know, we had a very, I think, productive workshop by the PSDA board a little less than a month ago, a couple weeks ago. And I really don't want, I don't think the PSDA board and I certainly don't want to forget the items that came up at that meeting and the workshop we had previously. And so Debbie and I are working on the budget presentation that we're going to present to you, the draft of the budget next month. And my goal is to make sure that the items that were discussed are, that you can see that your input is really driving the budget. And I just say that because we're working on the FY 2025 one-year budget, operating budget, with this discussion, and Whit is talking about long-range transportation in 25 years, so it's a little different. There was a lot of discussion at the workshop by the PSDA board about increasing revenues. How can PSDA increase its operating revenues in different ways? A lot of discussion about partnerships, and there was a whole table devoted to that. And then this month, the executive committee of PSDA recommends it for approval. You're going to see that policy that if you were at the workshop, you will recall Amanda talked about making sure that we always make money or make have more value from the partnerships that we create with entities than we have to spend. X has to be greater than Y, and so you'll see that on the board agenda this month. There was a lot of discussion about premium event services like buses to raise games or other big events that we could charge a premium fare, and that would help. Debbie and I have been working on trying to understand the regulations around what we could do with that. So I'm not sure if that is a short-term solution, but it is something we definitely want to explore. The other thing, which I don't know if it was really explored too much at the workshop, but it was discussed, that I presented to the legislative committee, was the discussion about the non-member governments, the 7 areas of the county that are not collecting the ad valorem tax. And I presented to the legislative committee on that. I've gotten some more information. Limiting our flexibility. I've just learned the Florida legislature changed some of the rules on special districts, but I'll present that again also. And then fares. What can we do to our fare revenue to increase fare revenue that would provide some more revenue? And so I'm going to focus a little bit on that in the coming slides. But first, just quickly, where we stand a month out from when we're going to present a first draft on the budget situation. As you heard, those who were on the Finance Committee heard, we're looking pretty good in fiscal year 24, the year we're in now, that we are slightly favorable to budget, where operating revenue is a little bit greater than operating expenses so far. And so if we keep that going for the end of the year, we'll have a slight surplus, possibly. Now that's a one-time surplus, it's just for this fiscal year. So my recommendation is you don't spend one-time revenue on ongoing operational expenses. That would be better served to go for a one-time expense, like a capital project. The other thing we're learning is that the Veterans Pass is very popular. The number of veterans that are signing up every month is growing every single month that we've been offering it since November. And it is taking away from other grant programs. People are signing up for the veterans, and they are not, that are also eligible or former transportation disadvantaged customers. And so then we lose that grant revenue. So it is costing PSTA more than we projected, at least so far, on that. Looking ahead to 2025, we don't have all the data. We're still gathering the information to present to you, but as you heard Debbie talk about at the Finance Committee, we did get a sobering number from Cigna on our proposed health insurance increase that we're trying to deal with. We have union negotiations this summer with our biggest union, which drives our biggest expense, and then service demands. We want to add the service on 34th Street. There is this request that came up at the workshop too about having service to St. Pete Clearwater Airport that we want to look at as well. So, speaking of fares, because this came up at the workshop substantially, one idea would be to increase the base fare on PSTA to generate more revenue from its current $225 base fare to maybe $250 or $275 even. The thinking, which is somewhat true, is a lot of our riders that maybe can't afford that wouldn't be affected because they're already qualifying for some kind of discount. They're already in the Transportation Disadvantage Program, or a student using the U-Pass, or a veteran. So they wouldn't be hit with that expense. Right now, half of our ridership would be under one of those other programs and not affected. They are either a Transportation Disadvantage customer, they're a student, or they're a U-Pass user, or a veteran. or they're riding on spring break, and the city of Clearwater is paying their fare, or whatever. The other half are paying the full price or the half fare, and they would be affected. We don't know, but we certainly see a lot of switching of customers based on the different fare programs we offer. And ridership may go down ridership will go down, we're fairly confident, if we increase the fare. But will it go down and then people will switch to other discounts? Will we get more people signing up for the Veterans Program? Will we get more, more reduced fare users because they are trying to avoid that high fare and we ultimately don't actually increase the revenue? One concept which has worked in the past, and this doesn't seem intuitive, but another option would be to decrease the fare. Decrease the base fare from $2.25 maybe down to $2 as an idea, and try to make it up on volume. Ridership would go up. Ridership would go up, and we have had some experience with this. Pre-pandemic, we used to have a Black Friday sale after Thanksgiving, where we would put the monthly pass at half price, and every time we did that, we actually made more money. More revenue was collected at $35 a monthly pass, because people would buy those up on that day, than we make it at the full price of a monthly pass. And that's a totally different situation, I get it, than the base fare, but it's possible. The other idea which we have is if you reduce the base fare from $2.25 to $2, you have to, federal law requires us to reduce the PSTA access fare. And that would be a concern, that we would lose money from those riders. But based on what we've seen, and Commissioner Cox, maybe this is something that I think you were kind of advocating for, we have so much demand for the mobility on demand that if we increased the mobility on demand at the same time we decreased the PSA access fare, so they were the same at $4, we'd increase the mobility on demand fare from $3.50 to $4, and we would reduce the access fare from $4.50 to $4, so that they would be even. Our staff guess, based on what we've seen, that it would be a wash. We would not lose money on that. We really think that the demand on PSA access seems to be growing regardless of what we do. This is just an informational item. I just wanted to present this month to our thinking on these things, so that when Debbie gets up there in a month, this is not I think it'll be very hard for us to present this to the public, and I want some time, and I want to hear your feedback on these different ideas. And so I just discussed how we would maybe recommend something that Commissioner Cox has suggested for a while, but we would go to make mobility on demand and access one fare. Another idea that we had, and this is a little strategic, is that we would increase the monthly pass from $70 to $85, which is our the cost of our regional passport that you can ride for $85 a month. You can ride PSTA and HART, any HART service with that monthly pass. The reason is because very few people shell out $70 and pay for the monthly pass. We have a very low every month number of people that go to the customer service center and say, here's a $70, I want a monthly pass. That just does not happen. And even on the fare capping Flamingo, not too many people hit the $70 each month. Even fewer pay the $85. The entity that buys the most monthly passes is the state of Florida, is the State Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged. every transportation disadvantage bus pass we sell for $11 to the customer, we then send an invoice to the state, and they pay us the difference between 70 and 11.59. So for every transportation disadvantaged customer, PSTA gets $70, the regular monthly pass fare. We get most of it from the state, and we get $11 from the customer. If we increase it to 85, the customer would still pay 11, they wouldn't even notice, but then the state will suddenly give us $74 a rider. And this is not uncommon. A lot of other counties that collect transportation disadvantage dollars do this already. So that would be an idea on that. And last but not least, just since these are a lot of unknowns, and the different kinds of fares, and our customers react pretty strongly to what we decide on fares. We've seen on the veterans program that we really maybe underestimated that. Of course, on the Sunrunner implementing fares, that had a bigger impact than we estimated. It would be sure nice, I think, if we could create some kind of test of some of these concepts, or a pilot to in maybe fiscal year 25, that we would test some idea out for 6 months, see if it worked, and be able to change it before we would do one of these things, because it's just not clear to me whether there's an obvious answer. And again, the whole goal is to increase revenue. How can we increase our revenue in the best possible way? I'd love to hear your thoughts or hot takes or anything you have on this.
Sure.
Questions?
Yeah, Brad, on the 85 passport rate, is there a maximum that the state will reimburse? Could we charge $200?
I suggested that. I think there technically is not a maximum. They do have us submit our costs. It's a very complicated process with the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage, but we have to submit, and then Commissioner Reed knows about that from the local coordinating board, because they see this report. But we have to show our expenses, and every county has to show their expenses, and you have to be within a certain percentage of the rest of the counties. Although a lot of the counties use cabs and little vans and things. They don't use the bus pass like we do. So we are always really low. So I think the answer is, yeah, we could increase it to more than 85.
Yes,
Yeah.
please, then suggest that. And then reducing the fares. I think we were able to show there's an appetite for free rides with Sunrunner. But outside of that, is there really any evidence that people aren't riding PSTA because of our pricing? Or is it more of a frequency situation or route situation?
The two pieces of evidence that I will present, I don't know if this is real evidence that people are not riding because of the base fare. One, the $2.25 that we currently offer is the highest in Florida, is the highest base fare of any county in Florida, and in our benchmarking, which looks at the whole country, it's one of the highest. $2.25 is high, and but you and I know we have 18 different discount programs going on behind the scenes. Transportation disadvantage, veterans, seniors, whatever, all different kinds. Like you were suggesting that we have a nice, easy website that you can figure out how you can get it cheaper. We try very hard to give everyone a discount, and then, but there is a thing about our marketing or our advertising of $2.25 as our price is kind of high, and are we depressing ridership? compared to our benchmarking of other systems, our ridership is lower. It's lower relative to our service than a lot of other cities. Now, that could be for a lot of different reasons, but one of them could be that fare, that high fare. The second would be when we got rid of the Flamingo, when we went to 100% Flamingo on January 1st and got rid of the mag stripe pass and went to Flamingo, we were selling mag stripe. About 15% of our customers were getting the mag stripes in December 2023, but then that went away. Half of them went to Flamingo. The other half went back to cash, went back to paying cash, and which they're suddenly having to pay $225. Or they're to me that just makes me nervous that we just do have it's not a large part of our population, but there is a group of folks that don't have very significant amount of resources, and that they maybe are riding less. They're riding less due to our fare, either the complexity of our fare program or the price. I'm not sure. One benefit of going to $2 is that's what Hart has, and we could kind of say one price for the whole region, and that aspect might be a benefit and make it easier for our customers to understand it. I mean, your guess is as good as mine, and you have better marketing minds, Amanda does, than I do, but it does, there's some evidence that maybe our advertised fare is maybe affecting the ridership.
I like that idea of dropping it to 2. And you could do it on just a limited time to see if it does have a little spike in ridership, see if it works. But, I mean, that is good to be the same as Hart. And then see what it does. And maybe the same thing of, increasing the pass cost a little bit. I don't know about $200, but you could raise that some.
Oh, come on, go for it.
Anybody else?
Yep. I would be nervous about raising the pass to $200. I would imagine the legislature might have some issues with that. And we don't. You want to be within the realm, but not spurring action to curtail that entire process. They can come back and be like, everyone only gets $40, right? And then that hurts everybody. And I will say, just from the get-go, I appreciate what I'm hearing and seeing here are the ideas and things that we were talking about at the workshop, right? So it's nice to see those coming back to us as part of the conversation. I am in favor of increasing, not decreasing, the fares to $250, mostly because we have the $5 cap. So if I'm a choice rider on the Sunrunner, I pay $225 one way, $225 the other, and we've lost 50 cents. If we raise that to $250, then we've captured the full cap amount, and then people that are connecting to the Sun, if you're connecting to the Sunrunner or using a transfer at any given point, you're already paying just the $5. So I feel like we're leaving money on the table for people that are willing to pay that extra 50 cents, and that's a 20% increase. And even so, if we drop it to 2, I don't know if it brings more riders in. Obviously, changing it to free brings a lot more people in. I would also say, while I completely understand that we are the highest in the state, or one of the highest in the state, or one of the highest in the bus benchmarking group, had you not told me that, I would not know. I am not, as a transit rider, going and looking up other counties' transit systems to see what they pay, to then decide what we pay and going, well, I think that's fair or not, right? It's coming down to, I am here, I need to get there, there's a cost for doing that. Is that value in that transaction worth it to me or not? So while I get it, I don't know if, same thing like, I remember I went to San Francisco for my honeymoon, and like the income or the sales tax was like, I don't know, a 600%. I don't remember. I just remember going, what? That was more than what we ate. But then I also remember going, I don't remember looking up the tax rates, the sales tax rates before coming out here. This is where I wanted to go, right? So I also don't think if we change it from 225 to 250, people say, well, I was really gonna go to Clearwater Beach for spring break, but I'm gonna decide to go to a different county because their bus fare is $2. Right, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know if it really is a deciding factor for folks, but I do feel like, especially since we have the capping, that we're leaving money on the table from choice riders, and that's why I'm leaning towards wanting to do that. I think raising the monthly pass rate makes sense. I did have a question though, going back. You said that 50% of our riders use the TD, UPass, and other discounted.
Yeah, one of those, if you add them all together, it's about half the ridership.
So how many of those riders, though, what I wasn't sure is how many of those are capped on a daily rate? How many of those riders are using a monthly pass? Right, so,
We're investigating that.
okay, because
We're
that
getting
is a
data.
key number of understanding, would we capture extra revenue or would we not, right? If we find out that only 2% are riding twice in a day, and so they're never, then there's extra revenue to do. If we find that
Right.
100% are riding 3 or 4 times a day, then, I guess I don't mean that. 3 or 4 times a day, then there is no extra revenue to capture. We're already capping it. We're already getting the $5. So understanding those numbers, I think will at least help me, because I know if that were the case, I'd be more inclined to lower the rate. If we find that the vast majority of people are capping out, right? They're already hitting the $5 regardless. Well, then it almost doesn't matter, except from a marketing perspective of lowering the rates.
Right.
And also, when was the original $70 monthly rate? Do you recall when that was set as $70?
It's a while.
Did the year start with a 1 or a 2?
It was 2.
Okay.
It was 2015 or 2016.
Okay.
It went up to $70 when we increased the fare to $225.
Okay.
175 and then 2 pretty quickly during the recession.
So if we are going to look at increasing that rate, I would also want to look at what were the general inflation rates for this area over that time frame. What were the fuel cost inflation rates? So at least we also have some context when we start talking about why we're raising rates, that it's, yes.
And it's also, as Brad pointed out, when we started Flamingo years ago, we got everyone in the region together and we said, let's see if we can work towards having the same rates for everybody. Some people didn't want to raise the rates. Some people didn't want to lower the rates. You know, there were different things. Some people had veterans free, some people didn't have veterans free. We could not come to a consensus. Of course, the regional working group is basically down to 2, PSTA and HART at this point. Having the passport rate at 85, now if we sell every monthly pass at 85, we make it across the region. Now I don't have to, because I've heard comments that customers have to download our rate for here and then do a HART one. Now we're going to a whole regional thing. At $85, it's regional at 2 as well. So we now really are starting to create what we wanted in the very beginning, which was regional fares.
And I agree. However, that regional rate may be 95. Right, so instead of us matching HART, maybe HART also needs, a unified rate makes sense to me, but is 85 the right dollar?
Yeah, I think
right, just because that's what HART has, I just want to do a little bit more.
We have together.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a passport pass that they can purchase within Flamingo.
Okay.
That gets them both PSTA and HART for $85. We're proposing bringing PSTA to that same price, so they get HART as a value-added bonus kind of
Okay.
thing.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, excuse my voice, the passport includes HART, PSTA together, period, that's it, right? No ferry, none of that stuff, correct?
That's currently it, yeah.
That is correct, okay. So, my take on this, and I'm thinking along the lines of Joshua too, is, I don't think a fare decrease is gonna help our revenue. I don't think it's gonna, in my opinion, it's not gonna generate enough new business to to offset that. And I'm good with the fare, really the way it is right now. Or if we want to generate a little more, you know, I had the other idea with the MOD, and I kind of like what you were saying, to make those two fares even at $2. But I would have an inkling more to go up to $2.50, and, you know, and then it caps out at $5 for the day anyway for two trips. And that would be, we need to look at this more. We can't just do this off the top of our head and say, well,
yeah.
you know, some research.
And that's what I want to kind of emphasize. What I'm presenting to you is just a neutral economic question of which of these options generates the most. There is a separate policy discussion that we can have, but just whether one or two gets more money is the key.
You all.
And I'm not really sure, based on our past experience, that's why I'm thinking that we should, whatever one we go with, we should call it a trial for some period of time.
I agree.
And see what it generates.
And that's what I was thinking. It wouldn't hurt to do it as a pilot to see if it did bump up ridership.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's important to have more people experience. But, you know, I understand where you're coming from with, you know, the rates and everything. So whatever we do, if we do it as a pilot, at least we can see if it works, it doesn't work, and go back and try something else. Patty?
With the veterans and so forth, where are we at doing like sponsorships or partnerships or things that help offset some of that, where it's going from the TD and we're losing? You know, like.
Because we're losing the grant revenue from TD
Right.
on those, and we've applied for some grant money. We've been unsuccessful on that, and, you know.
Is there some way that we can, like, say, hey, look at us, we're doing a really good thing, and hey, you know, give us some more, you know, like, help keep us at that level we need to be at, because we are doing a really good thing,
Yeah.
but we still need to do this and offer it, or even, I know we're gonna look at on Wednesday that, using some of that main money maybe towards some different groups also through the TV that may make up that, maybe? I don't know, I was gonna throw some of that out there, and then our sponsorships maybe for ridership, that may say, you know, with our new marketing and that, might help offset some of that difference in money, no? I mean, because we talked about in our workshop,
Yeah, I mean,
business partners and sponsorships and.
we did try two avenues already, and we can try those again, and then trying to look at other options. First, we talked to the state, the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage, and what the answer we got back on the veterans is just in the statute created decades ago by the state. Veterans is not defined by the state of Florida as a transportation disadvantaged group by the state. So they knew we were doing a good thing, but they couldn't help us. And then I know Commissioner Peters put in a request to the county. Each county commissioner gets a certain amount of community funds that it goes through some kind of vetting process, and it was for some funding, and that was not selected this last fiscal year. But maybe I don't know exactly why we didn't get any funding, but it was not recommended. We try that again, and then if there's other funding, we could certainly look at that, because we knew when we implemented the Veterans Pass that there was no revenue, there was no offsetting revenue for that, and we estimated how many veterans would sign up for it. I don't think we accurately counted that we would be siphoning off transportation disadvantaged customers that we are getting revenue for, or the UPass folks, or things like that going into the free veterans. We're kind of, cannibalizing from our own other programs and revenue. That's a little concerning to me.
Ballpark, about how much is that? Do we know ballpark, about how many?
30,000 veteran passes a month
IT, wow.
and growing and growing.
I think at least some of us saw that coming. That's why.
No, and that's not all lost revenue, because, I mean, some of those are new veterans that weren't riding before.
Right, right.
So that doesn't, we didn't lose, it's only a small portion of that that were formerly transportation disadvantaged and have switched over or something like that. Right? Yeah.
Man, I'm just gonna, just gonna say this. I don't know, does it get to the point where we offer so many discounts and we're trying to grab different groups, that when it comes to whether we increase the base fare or not, the effect is immaterial? You know, to me,
Well, I think that's what the workshop is.
I equate it to the federal tax rate, and we love to yell and scream on a political basis whether taxes are too high or too low. But we offer so many tax credits and so much information that at the end of the day, it's a marginal increase or impact to especially the corporations. And you know, so we're offering so many other things. I don't know whether you increase or decrease the fares is gonna have really the impact that we would like to see in the bottom line. And is there you know, and so is there a way to just to level the playing field for everybody?
Well,
Here's
I
public
had
transit.
another idea, which I didn't put on my slide, but was to get rid of all of the discounts and just charge $1. Every single person has to pay $1,
like it.
and with no discounts.
It's a Ross Perot plan right there.
That, I don't know if that would generate more money. I mean, that would, if we really got $1 per customer, that would be $10 million versus the 8 that we collected last year in total revenue. So it might.
That's
Might
called,
It might work. So I guess I'll jump in here.
Might work.
On my feedback. Originally, I would not be opposed to raising the fares to $2.50 when I heard the initial presentation and the bullet saying ridership may decrease. I don't think that really should be a consideration, definitely based on what Commissioner Gao just said. Either, I mean, we want our discount programs to, we just had a presentation about another discount program, so it's kind of, again, we do a whole lot of 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. The base fare decreased to $2 in comparison to Hart. I always kind of cringe when we compare ourselves to other people, because quality isn't something that's comparable. I know we're looking at revenue, and I know we were looking at what Hart does, and when you mentioned the regional aspect of it, now that makes sense. So whenever we propose something like that, it has to make sense. So when we make the presentation, make sure we keep that regional, because we just went over a survey that said our riders want to see more regional options. So that's how we present it, is that will help the regional aspect of what it is. So presentation matters. When you also mentioned that it's kind of like a wash, well, is it really? Is our PSTA access fare equivalent to what our MOD numbers look like? Do we have the equal amount of numbers of riders in both programs? Because if one program is serviced 2 times the amount of riders, it's not a wash. It wouldn't be a wash. So I guess we're looking at the use of those 2 programs and justifying them being the same, because we just went up on PSTA access, didn't we?
We kept the $3.50, but then when it got past 4 rides, it went up to.
It went up, okay.
After that.
I just thought we just adjusted.
We did a bulk fare thing to try to mitigate heavy usage of it, and evidence shows that had a minimal effect.
Right, so, yeah, I just thought we just went through that whole thing with PSTA access, and the $85 passport rate. I mean, if we had a very minimal use at $70, you can pretty much guess that it's not going to increase by going up to $85.
But it will on the
Correct.
TD side.
But it will on TD side. Okay, so if that's a plus for that on the TD side, then, go for it. But the $2 one, yeah, And going up to 250, I think that's a good look. Thank you, Chief.
I mean,
Anybody else?
one hope would be to what Mr. Alexander, you're suggesting, Debbie and her team would provide a beautiful spreadsheet with all of our estimates for all these different ins and outs. But they're all, they're all forecasting sort of predictions that may not be accurate. And that's why I'm kind of like, we haven't done the spreadsheet yet. And maybe we have to carefully explain this to the customers in some way. This is a pilot. This is a test of this. Let's see what happens. And then.
And since you mentioned the pilot, and then too, I'm also hopeful that we're gonna take into thoughtful consideration when we run the pilot. Is it gonna be for 6 months? Is it gonna be for a whole year? Because transportation is seasonal.
Yep.
So we may naturally have a decline, as certain parts of the year. So also the pilot is gonna be deciding when to do the pilot is gonna be critical.
I know. Like if we start this pilot this summer, that's when school's out, and then we wouldn't see the really effect of the now pretty high number of students that are riding.
And since you mentioned students, I had that on my notes to ask in other business, but since you brought it up and we're looking to increase revenue, hopefully we're still gonna look at, are we gonna offer free riding for students during the summer? Because they're not going to school.
Right.
So what does that look like, and how would that possibly increase revenue? If you wanna get on the bus all day, well, you had a $5 max. Are we still providing free services to students that are not in summer school? Or I know we also utilized it for them to get back and forth to work. So I don't know if we were going to investigate what that looks like. But that would be another way to offset some of the expenses that we're having in some of the free fares.
We have had some discussions with the Nelson County Schools about that concept for our next contract. That maybe it would be up to them if they want to provide that UPass benefit to the students and faculty during the summer. Maybe they could pay more for that. Like the summer would be a add-on. It's under our existing agreement. It's the whole year, but it's definitely on my radar at least.
I would say I think it probably should remain the whole year. I think you run a bigger risk of alienating the riders with changing policies back and forth. And you have some kids who are going to summer school and they're doing summer bridge, or now they can't get to a job, or they're using their whole money for their job to pay for the fare to get to the job. The goal here was to help subsidize that cost by having the schools help, but then really get people used to riding and making it easier for them, I think, makes it better for the system as a whole. So I'd be concerned about just changing it back and forth and having our riders understand what that is. But I will tell you, since you mentioned the $1, I haven't been able to think of anything else. Because it's just kind of intriguing to think about what that would look like. Because I'm also wondering what the reduction in administrative costs on not running these other programs, what the savings might be there, as well as potentially increasing revenue. So there might be some more thought on that.
Make a quick nickel instead of a slow dime.
Amanda had the idea that, since we're having our 40th anniversary,
we charge $40 million.
We would charge the same price that we charged in 1982, 75 cents.
Did people have 2
How much
cent
was
coins?
that?
I think it was 75 cents.
How about $1?
$1.
Let's stay with the
October is our
dollar.
40th anniversary, so that was a potential get on board promotion. Something else that the planning team has pointed out to me, if we are going to run any pilot, October is generally a good month to do it because it is a full 31-day month. There are no state or federal holidays. For us, it's a fairly decent tourism season without being a huge tourist boom. Kids are in school, so there's a lot of factors that make October an ideal time to do these kinds of tests? So, putting October into the universe.
Well,
Okay.
lots to think about.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay, does any committee member have any other business?
Negative.
No? Nay, okay. Our next meeting is June the 19th, 10:30 a.m. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Oh.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, Abhishek, but maybe ask you, Brad. How many bus stops are between Myrtle Avenue and Saturn Avenue on Drew Street?